When Counselor Zelek casually vaporized 47 human civilians during what he called routine pest control, he thought he was swatting flies. What he actually did was wake up the galaxy's most dangerous apex predators, who had been pretending to be harmless refugees for 800 years. The Galactic Council was about to learn why 3 separate alien coalitions had once tried to exterminate humanity before they could spread across the stars, and why those coalitions had failed spectacularly. Counselor Zelek's chitinous fingers tapped impatiently against his command console as he watched the pathetic human colony ship drift through space like a wounded animal. The New Haven. What a laughably optimistic name for such a primitive vessel. Its hull looked like it had been assembled by children playing with scrap metal. "Sir, the boarding pods are ready for deployment," announced his aide, a younger Vorthan whose mandibles clicked nervously. "Standard pest control protocols are loaded." Zelek's compound eyes glittered with amusement. Pest control. That's all these operations really were. Cleaning up the galaxy's infestation of hairless bipeds who thought they belonged among the stars. The humans had been warned countless times about straying too close to Vorthan trade routes. Now they would learn the consequences of ignoring their betters. Deploy the pods. "Make it quick and clean," Zelek ordered, his voice carrying the bored tone of someone crushing an insect. "I have a dinner appointment with the Trade Federation in 3 cycles." The assault pods launched like metallic wasps, slamming into the colony ship's hull with surgical precision. Through his viewport, Zelek could see the tiny figures of humans scrambling in panic. Amusing, really. They moved like frightened rodents when faced with real predators. The operation should have been routine. Board the vessel, confiscate any contraband, rough up a few colonists to make the point stick, then send them limping back to their little blue mudball with their tails between their legs. Simple, effective, standard procedure. Except someone in Pod 7 got trigger-happy. The explosion blossomed across the colony ship's central habitat ring like a deadly flower, venting atmosphere and bodies into the void. Zelek watched 47 humans die in an instant, including one particularly small figure that tumbled through space like a broken doll. His aide's mandibles chattered frantically. "Sir, that was the civilian quarters. There were children in that section." Zelek shrugged, a gesture that made his exoskeleton rasp. Acceptable losses when dealing with these primitive apes. File the report as resistance encountered, force authorized. The Council will rubber stamp it like they always do. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened with all the urgency of a social gathering. High Arbiter Kryth's massive bulk dominated the central dais. His 6 arms gesturing dismissively as holographic displays showed the aftermath of the New Haven incident. "So, let me understand this correctly," Kryth's voice rumbled like grinding stone. "The humans are upset about a minor skirmish that resulted in perfectly reasonable casualties?" The council chamber erupted in what could generously be called laughter. Admiral Voss of the Centauri Collective slapped his scaled knee with genuine amusement, his razor-sharp teeth glinting under the chamber's lights. 47 dead primitives, and they think they can make demands of us? Voss wheezed between chuckles. These barely evolved primates with their crude metal ships want justice. What's next? Are the farm animals going to demand voting rights? Ambassador Nexus from the Phrygian Syndicate floated in his containment sphere, his gaseous form swirling with what his species considered mirth. "Honored colleagues, perhaps we're being too harsh. After all, humans should be grateful we allow them to exist at all. Most civilized species would have sterilized that little blue rock centuries ago." The laughter intensified. Counselor Zelek preened under the attention, basking in the approval of his superiors. "The operation was textbook procedure," he announced proudly. "A few dead colonists serve as an excellent reminder of their place in the galactic hierarchy." High Arbiter Kryth raised one massive hand and the chamber fell silent. What exactly are the humans demanding in their communication? A junior aide, some insectoid species whose name nobody bothered remembering, scuttled forward with a data tablet. They're demanding immediate reparations, sir. Full compensation for the victims' families, public acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and they've given us 72 hours to respond." The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the chamber exploded in hysteria. Admiral Voss was laughing so hard he fell off his perch. 72 hours. They gave us a deadline. Oh, this is rich. What audacity. The very idea that a minor species, a barely spacefaring race from a death world they barely tolerated, would dare issue an ultimatum to the combined might of the Galactic Council was simply beyond their comprehension. They saw it as childish petulance, a laughable display of weakness that only confirmed their own superior standing. None of them, not Kryth, not Voss, not Zelek, truly understood the depth of the error they had just made. They had touched a line that humanity had drawn millennia ago, a line etched in blood and loss, a line they had chosen to hide for the sake of galactic peace. But now, that peace was shattered. And the ancient slumber of a truly terrifying force was about to end. The galaxy was on the brink of witnessing true retribution. The Galactic Council's laughter echoed through the chamber, a cacophony of misplaced arrogance. They reveled in their perceived superiority, dismissing humanity's ultimatum as the desperate cries of a primitive species. Counselor Zelek, still basking in the glow of his successful pest control operation, felt a smug satisfaction. He thought he had taught these hairless bipeds a lesson. He couldn't have been more wrong. Far from the glittering spires of the council chamber, on a world long forgotten by galactic cartographers, a lone signal flickered to life. Deep within the core of a desolate asteroid, a single, ancient monitor hummed. Admiral Eris Thorne, his face etched with lines that spoke of centuries, not years, watched the data scroll. His eyes, the color of ancient oceans, narrowed as he saw the image of the New Haven incident, the civilian quarters, the tumbling figures, the single small doll-like shape. "They killed a child," he whispered, his voice a low rumble that carried the weight of ages. Around him, the slumbering giants began to stir. These were not the sleek, modern warships of the current human fleet, the ones the Council casually dismissed. These were different. These were the Death World fleet, vessels of a forgotten era, built for a galaxy that humanity had once fought tooth and nail to survive. Their hulls were scarred by battles that predated most current galactic empires. Their weapons were not energy blasts or plasma cannons, but kinetic monstrosities, mass drivers that hurled relativistic slugs capable of tearing through even hardened alien armor. They were relics, yes, but relics of an age when humanity had faced extinction and fought back with a terrifying, unyielding ferocity. For 800 years, this fleet had been hidden, their crews in stasis, their systems dormant. After the last great galactic war, after humanity had pushed 3 separate coalitions to the brink of annihilation, a decision had been made. To hide their true strength, to embrace a guise of vulnerability. To become harmless refugees, in a galaxy eager to forget their bloody past. It was a sacrifice, a painful one, to prevent further conflict. To allow their children to grow up in peace. But that peace had just been shattered. On a world known as Ethelgard, buried beneath miles of ice, General Kalen Vark watched the same horrifying broadcast. His muscular frame tensed, his cybernetic eye flashing red. "They dared," he snarled, a low, dangerous sound. "They dared touch our young." Kalen, a veteran of countless battles, had led ground forces against alien legions that outnumbered his own by thousands to one. His tactics were legendary, brutal, and terrifyingly effective. His personal guard, a unit of similarly augmented humans, stood silent behind him, their expressions grim. They understood. Across the scattered human colonies, the message spread like wildfire. Not through official channels, but through the deep, hidden networks that humanity had maintained for centuries. Pictures of the New Haven victims, particularly the child, flooded every screen, every neural implant. The news sparked a quiet, simmering rage. No grand speeches were needed. No calls to arms. Just the image, the raw, undeniable proof of what the Galactic Council had done. And the silent understanding of what had to happen next. Back on the ancient asteroid, Admiral Thorne opened a secure channel, a channel that had been dormant for 8 centuries. This is Alpha Centauri Outpost 7. Authorization code, Genesis Protocol Alpha. A crackle, then a series of automated acknowledgements. Initiate awakening sequence. All units, Deathworlder Retribution Protocol, activated. Target, Galactic Council and all associated systems. His voice was calm, devoid of overt emotion, but beneath the surface, a chilling resolve vibrated. The asteroid began to rumble, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through its very core. Ancient lights flickered to life, illuminating cavernous docks where ships, unlike any seen in modern galactic fleets, hung suspended. Their hulls were blocky, utilitarian, designed for war, not aesthetics. Their weapons' emplacements, long dormant, began to cycle, a low, guttural grinding sound. One by one, stasis pods hissed open, revealing the stoic faces of men and women who had last seen combat against species long thought vanquished. These were the ancients, the veterans of humanity's true expansion. They were old, but not weak. They were hungry. The 72-hour countdown given by the humans wasn't a demand, it was a courtesy. A final, desperate chance for the galaxy to rectify its mistake before the true fury of a species pushed too far was unleashed. The Council had dismissed it as a joke. But soon, they would discover that when a Deathworlder issues a deadline, it's not a suggestion. It's a promise written in the blood of their fallen. And humanity, the supposedly harmless refugees, was about to collect. As the 72-hour countdown ticked away, the Galactic Council continued their arrogant deliberations. They scoffed at humanity's threat, viewing it as nothing more than a childish tantrum. Admiral Voss, still red-faced from laughter, proposed sending a single, small patrol vessel to escort the humans back to their home system. Ambassador Nexus suggested a stern diplomatic reprimand. Councillor Zelek, swollen with pride, merely repeated his earlier assertion that a few dead primitives were acceptable losses. They were utterly oblivious to the storm brewing, a storm that had been brewing for 8 long centuries. On Earth, a single, unified voice spoke through the global networks. No grandstanding, no political rhetoric. Just a simple, chilling message from the newly activated Directorate of Human Retribution: the 72-hour grace period is an act of mercy. It will not be extended. Justice will be rendered. By our hands. This message was also broadcast to the Galactic Council, a stark contrast to their own mocking pronouncements. But they ignored it, dismissing it as more human bluster. Deep within the forgotten corners of the galaxy, the Deathworld fleet was stirring. Ancient dry docks, hidden behind complex cloaking fields and powered by geothermal vents on otherwise uninhabitable planets, roared to life. Massive ships, with names like Vengeance, Iron Will, and Fury, began their agonizingly slow ascents from their slumbering berths. These weren't the sleek, elegant designs of modern starships. They were brutal, functional, designed for one purpose: to deliver overwhelming kinetic force. Their armor was thick, layered, and capable of shrugging off hits that would cripple modern cruisers. Their weapons, mass drivers and railguns, were slow to charge but delivered payloads that could rip through capital ships like paper. Admiral Eris Thorne oversaw the final preparations from the Bridge of the Indomitable, a dreadnought so old it predated the Council's formation. His movements were precise, economical. He had lived through the last galactic wars, seen the horrors of alien aggression, and witnessed the terrible cost of humanity's survival. He remembered the pain, the losses, the sheer tenacity it took to endure. And he remembered the promise made to those who fell: never again would humanity suffer such injustice without brutal retribution. Fleet status, Commander JL, Thorne's voice was calm, a low hum that commanded absolute attention. All units reporting readiness, Admiral, replied a young, sharp-faced officer, her fingers flying across a holographic console. Stasis crews fully awakened and integrated. Weapon systems charged. Jump calculations confirmed for all designated primary targets. The list of primary targets was short but terrifying: Nexus Prime, the Council's capital, and the home systems of Admiral Voss, Ambassador Nexus, and Counselor Zelek. The message was clear: this was not a war of conquest. This was personal. General Kalen Vark, meanwhile, was preparing his ground forces. Not for invasion, but for surgical strikes. His boarding pods were small, stealthy, and packed with veteran Deathworlders. Each soldier, awakened from centuries of stasis, moved with a quiet, lethal efficiency. They wore no fancy power armor, no shimmering force fields. Their gear was functional: tough, hardened ceramite plating, high-impact kinetic weapons, and an array of breaching tools. They were ghosts, designed to slip through enemy defenses and deliver precise, devastating blows to key infrastructure and personnel. Target Nexus Prime Central Spire, Vark instructed his unit commanders. Counselor Zelek will be awaiting our arrival. Make sure he understands the true meaning of pest control. As the final hours of the 72-hour deadline evaporated, the galaxy remained oblivious. Trade routes functioned normally, diplomatic channels hummed with petty squabbles, and the Council continued to pat itself on the back. They received no further communications from Earth, no more angry demands. This silence, they concluded, was a sign of humanity's defeat, their acceptance of their place. They couldn't have been further from the truth. The silence was not a surrender. It was the deep, terrifying breath before the roar. On board the Indomitable, Admiral Thorne stood before a massive holographic display of the Galactic Council systems, illuminated by thousands of tiny, unsuspecting lights. He had given them their chance. They had chosen poorly. He reached out, his hand hovering over the execute command. For the New Haven, he whispered, for the fallen. For the child. His fingers closed. The ancient fleet, long hidden, long forgotten, vanished into the void, leaving behind not a trace. Their awakening was not a declaration of war. It was a declaration of judgment.